afternoon and a warm welcome to our Conversations in Design session. I'm Claire German, I'm the Managing Director of the Design Centre Chelsea Harbour. In this exciting new format, we're keeping our community engaged and inspired by bringing together designers, industry insiders and media hosts for some great conversations online. I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce internationally acclaimed architect Peter Marino. His outstanding architectural designs have helped redefine modern luxury worldwide. And beaming in from Venice is Niccolò Favoretto Rubelli, and we are honoured that they are able to join us today. And talking to them will be Charlotte Abrahams. I have a hunch there'll be plenty to talk about, so there may not be time for questions and answers. It is such a thrill to have you both on screen today. So without further ado, over to you, Charlotte, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Claire. And I'm absolutely delighted to be talking to you both today. I think, as Claire said, Niccolò, you're beaming in from Venice, and Peter, you are in Southampton, as which you've just said is not British Southampton, unfortunately, for Peter. Anyway, we're here to talk about this beautiful collection that you've designed together, so welcome. Peter Marino needs very little introduction. The principal of the eponymous internationally acclaimed architecture firm he founded in 1978. He's credited with redefining modern luxury. He works globally across a broad range of products, types and scales, and is recognized for placing equal emphasis on architecture and interior design, and also for integrating art into his projects. I think today over 300 site-specific commissions have gone on. He's also chairman of the Venetian Heritage Foundation and sits on the board for the committee of the Union Centrale des Arts Décoratifs. Niccolò Favoretto Rubelli is the vice president and CEO of Rubelli, a remarkable Venetian fabric house, now in its 5th generation. Niccolò oversees the development of new products and collections and has had a major role in starting partnerships with external designers, including Peter Marino. The result of which is this extraordinarily beautiful Venetian heritage collection. So let's begin by talking about why you wanted to work together.
So it's my turn to start. Well, it's very easy because Peter is number one. So, and no, my great-grandfather had collaborated with artists such as Gio Ponti, but it was time to also introduce in the Rubelli group, in the Rubelli collections, something new and something exciting. So I tried to reach Peter for a long time, and he has been a good client of Rubelli already. But knowing his love for Venice, I managed to approach him by telling him, suggesting him that he could do something good to Venice through Rubelli. And in fact, the collection which came out is named Peter Marino for Venetian Heritage, because part of the revenues goes to restore art in Venice, and I'm very grateful for this. He has it in the heart. So I'm very happy because I got him like this. He had never, he really cared to design the textile lines, but for Venice he accepted. I remember this meeting, it was, I have no time. Then he fell in love with the textiles and briefed me on what he wanted. When the first meeting was much longer than expected, as the following ones, because he really has a passion for textiles. In spite of being a renowned and great architect, interior designer, product designer, he really understands and knows textiles like few other artists, let's say, in his industry.
And Peter, why, is that how you saw it? Why did you say yes?
Well, primarily because of what Niccolò said, that the 5% of the sales would go to Venetian Heritage and help restore artistic works that were in ruin. So that was my first idea of going after it. And then I have been ordering from Rubelli for about, I don't know, between 200 and 300 years. So I thought it was time to get something that I could order that I had done myself. Okay. The older you get, the more you want to actually kind of express yourself in a lot of different mediums.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be great. And he's a big supporter of Venetian heritage, and that's very important to me.
Okay, so let's have it. We've got some pictures of the fabric, and perhaps as we see them, we can talk about each one. I think there are 3 silk jacquards. Is that right?
Yes. The one on the left is named Marino. On the right, you have Lucente, which is this, and there is Tiepolo, the 3rd pattern.
And can you tell us a bit about the inspirations behind them, and also the making process? I think technically it was quite difficult.
I expected the first meeting to be more a shake hand, yes, we agree, let's see when we meet, etc. Peter was very matter of fact. He said, I wanted the waves of Venice, I want the light, the reflection of the light, and he already brought me ideas, images of cabinets that he had in bronze with waves. I say, I want relief. So he left, I went out with a lot of information and a good brief. I like that, very clear. Also giving me a special color, the ice blue, which he said, nobody has ice blue, I cannot find it on the market. So with this brief, I went back to Venice, and one of our designers went to work and created several designs. I have to, very clear and very, I have to say very rational. I like the fact that the brief was very clear. I have to say that for the second meeting, I was a little bit scared of his reaction, because I was kind of anxious if he would like it or not.
And did you, Peter?
Now let Peter say that his reaction.
No,
Did you feel that Robelli had captured your vision?
Very much so. He understood. I mean, the best image is right behind his head. Take a look at it. If that doesn't look like the canals of Venice, you know, I don't know what does. And if you could kindly flip back to, yeah, there we go. I mean, it's that very beautiful aqua green of the canals.
Amazing.
I had worked for the founder of Venetian Heritage, Lawrence Lovett, and we stored his palazzo in Venice called Palazzo Cernoggiotto. And it had 2 features that were fairly unique. It had a terrace, a terrazzo, on the Grand Canal, as opposed to a facade going straight into the water. That obviously indicated that it was 19th century. And so I have to tease you, Niccolo, that the old Venetian families poo-pooed it because it was built in 1803 as a new house. but right, you've got to love Venetians. But standing on the terrace and looking at the water was quite a revelation for 2 reasons. The reflections of the water changed the colors of absolutely everything that I had designed in New York, but changed them radically, not a little bit. I know, for instance, even the projects that we're working on in London, for instance, the London light is radically more blue than New York, so we always take our colors over to test them.
Right.
But Venetian colors were just completely different. They were all aquafied. The reflections off of the sort of this aqua water changed everything. Of course, it changed red to green, and that's why you had to. I mean, that's why Veronese came out with that crazy alizarin red. I mean, everything had to change for the light. So the 2 things I said would be great if we could capture in a textile collection is the movement of the water, the fact that it's not a static city at all, that even when there's nobody there, and Nicola, it's funny because during COVID, we were all seeing lots of films of Venice, how pretty it is with no people. And there were little porpoises in the canals and everything. And you realize that it's a city that's always has movement. The water is always moving. It's non è un lago, huh? So it's il mare. So you always have movement, and that's what I tried to capture in the textiles. Movement and the crazy reflection of light on the water. It's very, 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 very special. And I thought Robelli was brilliant by putting different qualities of silk so that when the light hits it, it's kind of like light hitting water.
Mm. No, it's remarkable. Well, did it really push Rubelli's factories, you know, in ways that hadn't been tested before to create this?
I have to say that it was a lovely challenge because we tend to do, our heritage is more traditional. So we tend to treat silk also in a more traditional way. So this was the opportunity to do something quite new. And going back to color, it is true that Peter demanded to make the final selection of colors in Venice. He kept saying the light of New York is not the light. The other meetings happen in New York, but the final selection he wanted to do in Venice. So it happened at the time of the famous Dior ball that he chaired at last year at the Palazzo Labi, fantastic, I mean, a great event. And at that time, he took the time to select the final colors for this collection.
Okay, and obviously Venice's influence runs right through the collection. And you both have a real passion for the city. Obviously, Rubelli was founded there, and it is your home, Nicola. And Peter, you've been very closely connected for 20 years or more with the city. What is it about Venice that captures your heart so greatly?
The entire city is a museum. It's the history of Western architecture, and it is the history of the mixture of Asia with Europe. I mean, I find much more so than, for instance, Istanbul, which is clearly Middle Eastern. But you make a soup with 50% Asia and 50% Europe, and you get Venice.
Wow. Yes. Yes. And you've got several projects going on, and I think we've got some pictures of other projects you've done here, and a rather marvelous picture of you standing in Venice. Be lovely to hear about some of the other projects you've worked on, Peter, in Venice.
Well, in Venice, Venetian Heritage is in the process of restoring Palazzo Gramani, that family was the only Venetian family to become popes in Rome, which is interesting. Venice was a bit not terribly allied with Rome and the popes. In fact, the popes excommunicated the Venetians twice.
Yeah.
Not because of their naughty behavior, simply political disagreements. So here we have the first room of Gramani that's been restored, and we showed it to the world at the Venice Biennale last year. And some of the statues are reproductions because we didn't have all of them, but many were loaned to us by the city of Venice and are being restored because when the Gramani Pope came back from Rome, of course, the passion in Rome was finding all the antiquities, and so he made a room, a sort of cabinet of curiosity, full of Roman antiquities. So this is not terribly Venetian in style at all. He wanted to show his neighbors just how up-to-date and Roman he was.
Right. It's rather marvelous. And then there's three statues here, yes, that you helped to restore.
These are fascinating. They're by the sculptor Antonio Rizzo, and they were the very first naked statues. I call this 1462 the turning point, the end of, I call it the formal end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of Rinascimento, because prior they had never publicly shown naked statues, and this was really this year was a sort of very strong breaking point. And these statues were in the courtyard of Palazzo Ducale. They were pitch black, and everybody for the past 180 years or so thought they were in bronze, including me when I saw them. But they were just filthy and polluted and had turned black. They're actually out of white Carrara marble, like Michelangelo's Pietà. So it took Venetian Heritage more than 2 years and a lot more than $2 to restore these. And we've now showed them. They were so proud of them. They will never go again outdoors because, of course, the surface will be burned. the terribly clever part of the scientists in Venice was to have realized how do you remove 500 years of grime. And the answer was done with dental laser technology, the way you clean teeth, so that the original patina of the Carrara marble would show through. So it was a scientific breakthrough as well as an artistic revelation. No one knew they were out of white marble.
How fantastic. It's beautiful.
And my family foundation was happy to underwrite the restoration.
Wow, wow. And Nicola, tell us a little bit. I mean, obviously, Venice, you've lived there your whole life. What is it to you, for you, about Venice that's so special?
Well, it's home. You know, we have a very small village because we're a little more than 50,000 inhabitants in this place, which is, well, it's beyond anything else. It's not, I can't call it a city or whatever. It's really a special place. So I feel very privileged and very grateful of this family company, which allows me to remain in Venice and to deal with something, silk and textiles, which are really inherently belong to Venice, to the tradition. So I'm aware that it's a big privilege, and I'm aware also because this allows me to, well, as a merchant of Venice, we have to try to go around the world and to deal with people, extraordinary people such as Peter, and to come often also to the design center in London. I love coming to. So really, I feel very privileged, and coming back to Venice is the most. I love going around to New York. Coming back to Venice is the best sensation.
Yeah.
I have to, Charlotte, put things in perspective.
Yeah.
He says that Venice is a little village. No, where my family's from in Italy, Piagine really is un piccolo villaggio. 500 abitanti, sai?
No international village because we have all the stars. We just had the festival, actually still going on. So a lot is happening in this village, but it's so small when we compare to the big Chinese 10 million and above cities. I'm happy I'm not living there. I'm great.
As we've discussed, you know, the light in Venice is extraordinary, and as you've captured it magnificently in the fabric collection. But light as well, Peter, is fundamental to your projects. Can you just tell us a little bit about, you know, the role light plays in your architectural projects?
Well, I'm the first one when I did Barney's in 1986, before any of you were born, to make a department store that had all windows that were open. Because in the old days, all department stores in the United States, and I presume the rest of the world, were dark. And I remember asking the head of Federated Department Stores, why do you do that? Why do you have, they said, well, we don't really want the customers to know that it's getting late. They might rush home.
Okay.
I've never recovered from that remark. I went, seriously? Like, really? Because when I talk to my wife, she goes, it drives me nuts if I can't walk over to a window and see whether it's navy or black. So we were the first to do a department store down on 17th Street.
Yeah.
Windows on all sides. And that was sort of a revelation to me that actually people intentionally made spaces dark. And I was like, really? So for all of the stores that I've done in the past 20 to 30 years, they are flooded with light. And I think the benefits of light, obviously, to your health and to your mental state, are terribly, terribly important. And any kind of cutoff of it is sort of tragic.
Yeah. I think we've got some pictures of just 4 of your projects where we can see how the light works, haven't we? You just tell us very quickly about these.
On the upper left, we did this building for Samsung in Korea. It's a Greek white marble, 2 cubes, housing on the ground floor, boom, the shop. And I think the lighting, as you'll see, I very much tried to do the lighting as they did in ancient Greek theaters. There were always candles on the ledges of the marble around the entrances and the proscenium arch. And I like lighting buildings that way. I don't think we've surpassed the Greeks at lighting and drama.
No, I would say that.
The house on the upper right is right on the beach. here in Southampton, the real Southampton.
Lest we forget.
And of course, this um, is a house that just lets the light go right through and is not stopped by anything. And the sensation is, I mean, it's actually really uplifting. Then on the lower left is a house we built in Saint-Jean-Cap-Ferrat, where the light is so strong that we actually had to shade it a bit, so you don't need sunglasses in the house. On the lower right is a staircase at Bulgari, where we have the light coming through a neoclassic Roman grille.
Just beautiful. And you know that the next question is about sort of beauty and art, which so follows on very well. Peter, you have a world-renowned collection of art and of ceramics, and you've just done, I think, an exhibition opened yesterday, didn't it, at Chantilly of
The first public exhibit that I ever did, I'm very proud to say, was done at the Wallace Collection. It was the Brits who said, we want to show your bronze collection. I have a collection of Italian Renaissance bronzes, and it was the British curators at the Wallace who first showed it before any of the American museums. It then toured America. So I'm always grateful to the Wallace. I think it's an incredible museum.
And how does your interest in art, how does that feed into your creative work?
Well, all my architecture projects, I always engage artists and ask, what would you do? We commission artists. I think it makes the combined work of art much better. I mean, it's a really old technique that artists work with architects. I think that there's a certain level of arrogance in modern architects who yeah, I'll hang your painting in my lobby. It's just not the way I think. And I've come into architecture. Remember, I was in College of Fine Arts and then transferred to architecture. So my background is fine arts, and I just think involvement with artists, would you really care about the Sistine Chapel if it weren't for the painting? And I'm not joking. I mean, it's the combination that's always better. So it seems so obvious to me, but there's a beautiful book Phaidon published on the 300 commissions that I've done in my career, engaging artists specifically, which is a little bit different from buying art and sticking it in a space.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you also, I mean, you have an extraordinary porcelain ceramic collection, don't you? And I think there's a book coming out celebrating that.
There is. Okay, I like looking like this and being called the porcelain architect. We designed the porcelain museum in Dresden, and I was very proud of that. The Minister of Culture of Germany came to me and asked me to design the museum, the Zwinger, the four wings that housed Meissen and Kenshi porcelain, the best collections in the world. And I was very flattered to be asked by the government to do that, and it was wildly successful. We went from an attendance in the former German Democratic Republic of 10,000 a year to over 200,000 a year people visiting. Wow. Right. And how do I get people interested in porcelain? Well, perhaps you should show them the little photo. I just opened a porcelain exhibit at the Chateau of Chantilly.
Yeah.
Under the guidance of Prince Amin Aga Khan. And I hope you Europeans will have a chance to visit it. It's open until January.
Till January, yeah. So hopefully, we do have a picture of that, of one of the rooms.
I think in the Salon de Bataille, we made 2 red tents and filled it with porcelain. There we are.
Just extraordinary.
how do you get people to focus on porcelain in a gallery with nothing but the Prince de Condé's battle scenes? Well,
It's a really fabulous juxtaposition. I love it.
so,
And you're also obviously, incredibly well known for your work with. Oh, and this is for the book, isn't it?
This is my collection.
Yeah.
In addition to porcelain, Kengshi and Meissen, I also collect ceramics. I think ceramics is one of those overlooked art forms.
Definitely.
I believe ceramics define the period in which they are done. This is all Adrien Dalpera, who inherited the studio from Theodore Deck. It's French, 1885 till the factory was bombed in World War I. Phaidon is publishing a book. It's actually a 2-volume set. They have the first one on Theodore Deck, and this is the second one coming out in October on Dalpera. And there's a little bit here, if you look at the glazes on the porcelain, a little bit here I was thinking of, so we're giving the future, Niccolo, of taking the Venetian alizarin red and mixing it with aqua. And if you see the way the colors flow in the glazes, you can get ready for the next collection.
Well, that's exciting. And is that, does that, presumably all of these things feed into your work all the time? All of these are constant inspirations.
It is. I'm really lucky with the commissions that I get. And it's also great being over 150. They give you carte blanche now, you see. Once you pass the 2-century mark, the clients go, okay, do whatever you want. We're so grateful we're alive.
You're also obviously incredibly well known for the work you do with the luxury brands, Chanel, Fendi, Dior, and you've done a flagship store for Louis Vuitton in New Bond Street in London. And I read
that opened last autumn.
Opened last year. And you said, I read somewhere that it channels happiness, which to me feels an incredibly important thing. I mean, always, but particularly now. And Nicola Rubelli's next collection for next year is about joy. Is that right? Can you tell us a little, I mean, in this time when, the world needs some joy, frankly, especially outside of the home, what can the design world do to improve, and to bring back some of the joy in the world?
We are in a small market, but thank God I'm not in the medical industry. I think the responsibility is huge, and frankly, really, it's a big challenge. They have grateful for what they do.
Yeah, indeed.
Really important. We do our small world. We cannot heal the body, but we try to bring a little bit of happiness to the soul.
To the soul, exactly. Yes.
We try to make product, and today we are putting more color, more joyful textiles, but then we need the skill and the talents of people like designers and people like Peter Marino to understand how these products can be used. Because I mean, what we do is a piece of textiles has to be used, has to be applied. Point. But then we need to get into the buildings, the home, a hotel, a restaurant, or museum, and really deliver the message. That we need the professional who can do the job. And I have to say, Peter knows how to do it, and also is before the trends. He understands he has a feeling of what goes on. So I think he started bringing happiness and color before the rest of the market did. And this Louis Vuitton store in London was already foreseeing what I think now need more and more.
Absolutely. Do you feel that, Peter, that it is part of your responsibility to bring some joy?
It's yes. The answer is yes. And I'll tell you a very funny story about being. Here we are. Here's some.
Here's the store.
Color, and I don't think there's too many architects who would have the courage to do that. May I say?
I think you're right.
But I had one client, Lawrence Saper, the head of a huge medical company, who was interviewing people for a headquarters, and it turned out to be one of the largest projects of my career. It's 30,000 square meters of research laboratories for heart machines. And when I went to the interview, it was, I'll never forget it. At the end, he said, okay, I've just interviewed 4 architects. You are the only one who smiled throughout the whole interview. None of them even cracked a smile. And he said, you kept laughing and smiling. He said, like, que joy, let's work together.
That's
so
fantastic.
I used to tease people, and anyway, the nickname was the Happy Architect. So I hope it's
well. I think that is, given the state of the world, I think that's something to celebrate. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope we can all come to the design centres in person soon and see this extraordinary collection. Peter, Nicola, it's lovely to see you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.